reede, viimane päev. Tegija räägib kohtumiste sarjas. Täna peaksid siin olema Seed ja Fornier, aga on ainult Seed. Loodame, et Fornier liitub meiega mõne aja pärast. Ja nüüd ma annaksin siis sõna Seedile. Ta räägib pisut iseennast. A little introduction about yourself.
So, my name is Sid Pearlman. I'm a California-based choreographer. I've been in Estonia for the last year. I'm a Fulbright scholar, so I'm sponsored here actually by the U.S. State Department. And I've been teaching at Tallinna Ülikool first, second, third year students and master's students for the last year.
But how did it happen that you arrived to Estonia to teach here?
When I was in graduate school in Los Angeles at UCLA, Helie Nasto, who's a dance critic and also a dance writer and teacher at Tallinna Ülikool, was studying with Susan Foster, who's sort of one of my academic and dance mentors. And so I met Helie in Los Angeles, and we became friends. We went to some shows together, and then she came back after a few months to Estonia. We didn't have a lot of contact, and then I was interested in looking into the Fulbright and the opportunity to teach out of the country for a year, and saw this list of places that all began with vowels: Ireland, Egypt, Estonia, and a few other places that began with vowels. I was like, I know Helie, and Helie told me very interesting things about what was happening here in contemporary dance. And so it was really quite a nice opportunity to come back and engage with people and really be able to see what we had been talking about a few years earlier.
But I assume that you have had practiced working with other nationalities in other countries also.
You know, actually I haven't. I lived in Berlin in the 80s for 3 years, but I primarily made my dances in the United States on the west and east coast.
Okay.
It's a big country, it's 3,000 miles.
Yeah,
and so this is actually my first experience as a teacher, not as a choreographer, but as a teacher teaching outside. But in the United States, there's a lot of diversity. And so you're often teaching to people who are coming from many different backgrounds. And so this idea of difference and cultural difference is really inherent in my teaching practice and also what I think about in my choreography. I did my degree, both my MFA and my BA in the Department of World Arts and Cultures at UCLA. And in this department, we really look at all different kinds of dance forms and try not to sort of privilege Western concert dance at the center, but know that alongside with that we have Bharatanatyam and flamenco, and we have hip-hop, and we have all these other styles that have the potential to create really complicated pictures of the practitioners who make these forms. And so thinking about teaching in different communities, because in the United States, different communities have almost as much difference as often nations do. You know, it's a big country with a lot of cultural difference.
Yeah, but okay, comparing Estonians with people in America who weren't.
So, what would you like to know about Estonians compared to Americans? Because that's a very big question. Do you mean as dancers, as people, as a cuisine, as a topography?
Okay.
Okay, we don't eat Estonians, but I mean, there's so many. I think that you can't. I work with a bunch of individuals at Tallinna Ülikool, and I work with a bunch of individuals when I teach in the United States. I work with a bunch of individual dancers here, and I work with a bunch of individual dancers when I work in other places. So I can't make generalizations that Estonians are like this. What I'm interested in my work is looking at the social values that are performed on bodies. So dancers perform different sets of social values. Meaning comes through the body. And how the kinds of meaning we create is very much formed by how we grow up, the ideas we have about the world, the ideas we have about ourselves in relationship to others, as men and women, as ideas of hierarchy and class. All of these things come across through how we present ourselves, both in sort of an everyday life and also how we present ourselves through our choreographies. So I can look at the choreographies here and say they're performing a certain set of social values. But I can't say that Estonians are like this because Estonians are so many different ways, and that's what I've really learned in the year, is that you can't create a list of Estonians are like this.
Then I wanted to ask about the choreography I saw. There were two pieces.
Yes.
And the first one was made with the students you work with, university students.
Right. It was actually not made on those students. It was made by students in California, with students in California in 2006. So this was a piece they learned.
So you just picked it and...
Yeah, this was a piece they learned, which was a really interesting experiment. So we have a bunch of young Estonian dancers, and they got to try on this sort of wacky Californian body in this piece about flying and falling, and got to make it their own and bring their own personalities to it. And it's not the same piece that it was that they learned off video. It's the piece that they made it. And it's interesting because when I make work, I draw a lot from the individuals. And so in that sense, they didn't get to be part of making the piece, but they still brought a lot of their individuality into it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted also to say, that what I enjoyed about the piece you made with students was this kind of feeling free, kind of being rather exhausted from the dance because of the dance, but still having this, sweating and still going ahead. And also when the movement was set that it was supposed to happen, the whole group doing one thing, then there was some missing. They didn't do it all the time. Usually it's sometimes, of course, the choreographers tend to make it perfect. They have this kind of goal to make it perfect, that everybody would raise their hand at the same time. But usually they fail because it's so difficult.
Yeah.
So where does this come from?
So I think it feels like there's, go ahead.
No, I just we talk a little bit about that and then we reach you. So
I think there's two questions in here. One is about the exhaustion. And I think that in making the piece, this falling that we do, and catching, falling is one of the postmodern cliches, even modern dance cliches, starting with Doris Humphrey, fall and recovery. So I became very interested in bodies that don't fall softly to the ground and recover, but bodies that land with a thud, that skid. And how we land depends on how sweaty we are, what the floor is like that day. If I remember to wear a long sleeve t-shirt, or I forgot, at which point my bare skin touches the ground and I don't move. So in that sense, it's about resilience, this piece, and this falling. The resilience of the body, resilience of the spirit, also a sense of a body that acts with authority in the world and agency. This is a body that can do something. This is not a body that is acted upon. It's a body that can go out and act in the world. In terms of the unison and the synchronization, I think that probably as a younger choreographer, it was important to me. But I'm really interested in dancers being individuals and not characters or furniture. So I get suspicious sometimes of synchronization. Sometimes it's beautiful and it's lovely to watch people working in unison. But sometimes I'm suspicious of some of the things like wings. Like, I love the magic of theater, but when people disappear, where do they disappear to? They're just standing by the wall, and then they come back out and here they are. Where did they go? They're probably... So, beautiful unison is hard to achieve. Bodies with also different trainings. For example, the students that I taught at the Yriko come from folk, traditional, ballroom, sport dance, contemporary dance. So they're all, not necessarily the third years from this piece, who've been now studying, more contemporary dance for a couple of years. But these bodies are socialized different. A ballroom dancer has a very different